This is John with Pastors in Recovery. I'm glad you joined us today for this episode. Today, our episode is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about the inventory of your life. All right, let's get started. Okay, so God has given me an awareness of something, and that is why I do inventories, because without doing an inventory, without asking God to show me these things in my life, I'm probably not aware of them because I'm kind of blocking it out of my mind. I was like, I don't want to think about it, or it's just too painful to think about. So I pray and I ask God to show me. And he does. Sometimes it just kind of comes through people in interactions, and often, it's like I'm praying and I'm asking God to show me what he wants me to work on this year. Sometimes it comes through just other people. God speaks through other people. He speaks through my sponsor. He speaks through me reading in his word. This particular issue, really God spoke through my wife. And it really it caused me to turn to self-reflection. And when my wife would say things like this to me in the past, I would feel really rejected or belittled. But this time, I don't know if it's just because I'm growing in my recovery or it's because God was really speaking just so loud to me. I'd like to think that it's both, but I chose to listen. And then I started to reflect on this. And so what I discovered in my personal inventory about analyzing is what I want to talk about today. So let's talk about an inventory. What is an inventory? Why are we doing an inventory? An inventory is something you do in a recovery program where you get to step 4 and you work on your hurts, hangups, and habits. And the whole idea isn't who you can blame for your problems as much as take those hurts, hangups, and habits and owning up to your own side of the street. This helps you to become honest with yourself, helps you to lay them before the Lord in prayer, and then helps you to share them with a trusted friend, someone you can trust. James 5:16 says, confess your faults to each other and pray for each other so that what? So that you may be healed. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, when we have the interview with John Grams, we did talk about how, John mentioned how not just you as in yourself, but you as both of you, whoever's involved in it is going to find healing. And that's really cool. So you have reconciliations of broken relationships. You have people asking for forgiveness. You have people saying, I'm sorry. These are the kind of things that God wants to do in your life. So let's break it down. If you're doing an actual inventory in a recovery program, you're going to basically look at 4 or 5 different things. You got the cause. Actually, you start off with the person, then you have the cause, the effect, the damage, and then your part. So I'm going to start off with the person. So each year, as I said, I focus on something that God brings to my attention. The person in this situation is actually myself. I created this issue. I created the problem of overanalyzing or analyzing the wrong time and place. But before I go forward, and it's easy to get all negative on yourself on this and beat yourself up, but that's not what we're doing here. So I want to acknowledge a couple things. Number 1 is I know God made me this way, that he gave me an analytical mind, which is a good thing. And number 2, I know that I can use this trait positively or negatively. It can either be a gift or a grievance. So since I'm the person that I'm focusing in on, then I got to take responsibility for what I am doing. So let's look at the cause. There are 2 key tendencies that leads myself to overanalyze. 2 key tendencies that leads me to overanalyze. And number 1 is overanalyzing. I tend to think about things in too much detail when it's unnecessary. What does that mean? Is it really ever unnecessary to overanalyze? I mean, can't I just do this and that and that? Well, I want you to hear a little story. I've shared this before, but I was, sitting there at a church, and we're attending a church and we're sitting there, and it's in between services. There's people coming and going, and my wife is sitting there, just enjoying the moment. And I'm looking at everything. It's like, the lighting. I'm looking at, there's a prayer area over there, and these are the people in front of me who are greeting, helping newcomers. And then you got the coffee over here to the right. And then there's these TV screens, and I'm wondering who sets those up and what kind of TVs they are, and did they get donated or do they have to raise the money for them? You know what I mean? Overanalyzing. And so I start sharing that with my wife, and she's like, John, can't you just enjoy the moment? And I'm like, you're right. So as soon as I enjoyed the moment, I'm just like, oh, wow. I started to feel, kind of the sense of what God was feeling in that moment. It's like, okay, God is saying, there's people here that are being touched and blessed by, what is happening here, what is happening in the room. It's what God is doing. But by overanalyzing, I'm missing that. So analyzing at the wrong time, So there you go. Being in a situation when it's not appropriate, it distracts from the present moment. Now, my sponsor had mentioned to me that, when you focus on gratitude, it helps me to refocus on others. So, for example, in that situation, if I was, grateful for my wife being with me, I would have been thinking about her. Hey, what is she doing? Just, encouraging her, loving her, just enjoying what God was doing, thinking about what God is doing, thinking about the people as, they're receiving ministry, they're being blessed, rather than, looking at, where you're trying to locate the bathrooms or something. So this is the cause, the things that leads to overanalysis. So what's the effect of this? Well, when I overanalyze, it impacts three main areas. One is wasted time. When I overthink, I waste time and sometimes force others, like my wife, to listen to my thoughts. Oh, wow. So, it's not like my wife doesn't want to listen to me, but when I overanalyze and I try to pull her in on it, she does not enjoy that. Which comes to number two. It leads to my unhappiness. Overanalyzing does not bring me joy. It often makes me unhappier. I don't necessarily feel happier or better because I overanalyze the church. I don't necessarily feel better because I overanalyze and I shared it with my wife, and now she's not happy with me. And then number three, missed connection with others. Overanalyzing makes me absent from meaningful interactions, leading me to miss opportunities to engage. So, like I said, I'm not focusing on people, focusing on myself, on my own thoughts, and I miss those opportunities. It's sort of like a couple things. So I'm sitting there in the car with my wife and I'm trying to share all this stuff with her, and she doesn't really care about that. It's just way too much information. And so she's not happy with me. She doesn't want to listen to me. So that I look over at her and think, oh my gosh, she's just ignoring me, or she's too busy on Facebook or something. And then, it's like, I hate this because she doesn't want to engage in conversation. Well, is it my own fault because I'm dumping all this unnecessary information on? Or I'm in a conversation with another person, and while they're talking, I'm actually thinking about what I'm going to say next. Does that create meaningful interaction, or is it just leading me to miss an opportunity to really engage with them and care about them? And that comes to the damage. This behavior has caused harm in several ways, and I'm going to give four ways that this has caused harm. Number one, it hurts my relationship with my wife. She doesn't appreciate obsessive analyzing, and it creates distance between us. So is it like when she's with me, does she expect me to just overanalyze and give her information she doesn't want to know? So that kind of makes a distance. She does not look forward to being with me. She does not look forward to road trips. Or number two, increased cynicism. Does it lead me to do I become more critical? Do I become more judgmental because I'm just analyzing every little thing? Is there missed relationship? Do I lose the joy of deepening relationships when I'm not fully present? So like in that conversation with that other person, since I'm not fully present with them, then perhaps they don't really want to be with me because all I'm talking about is myself. It's sort of like oh yeah, I can relate to that. Let me tell you a story of my life, when they really just want to share about their own life. Number four, distraction. Being distracted by analysis means I miss out on loving others in the moment. I need to shift my focus, making people the priority and not tasks. Now, by the way, that was something that God really began to work on me in a couple of years ago, is to put people before the task. So, what's my part in all this? Well, while analyzing is a natural trait, while it's a good thing and a gift from God, I'm responsible to regulate it. Overanalyzing is my responsibility, and I can set up boundaries. Just like with any other habit that might be unhealthy, I must recognize when it's inappropriate and manage it. Hey, we're going to take a break from our podcast right now. We'll be right back after this break. Are you looking for a safe place where you can talk to other pastors with full anonymity and confidentiality? Celebrate Pastors in Recovery is just that place. In a Celebrate Recovery group, you'll be working with other pastors going through the 4 books of Celebrate Recovery Step Study series. Each pastor will be in the exact same place you're in, giving themselves wholeheartedly to this. When you join a group, you're going to know that you're going to be able to talk to other pastors who can relate through the different things that you go through in your life. I am confident by you joining a CPR group today, you will be able to find freedom from your hurts, your hang-ups, and your habits. Think about it. Where in this world can you take time to actually spend with other people where you can completely open up and share those deep things that you've never been able to share before? This is that kind of place. So I encourage you to sign up. Go to cpr.celebraterecovery.com. cpr.celebraterecovery.com. Hey, we're back from the break, and we're going to continue talking about really why we need an inventory in our life, and kind of focusing on my own on analyzing. What kind of things in your life are gifts from God and that you excel at, maybe even naturally or spiritually, it's a trait. When used inappropriately, does it become unhealthy? So these are really important things to think about in our own lives, right? I want to talk about guardrails. It's something we talk about a lot. Obviously, a guardrail is the idea of a car driving on a mountain road. Like, let's say you're in Glacier National Park in Montana, and they got those guardrails on the side of the road. And believe me, I'm glad they're there. But even more so, my wife doesn't even want to look over to the right, and she wants to make sure I'm watching the road, right? So guardrails help. So 3 things. 1, recognize the sign. So the guardrail could be, notice when I'm overanalyzing. Is the other person checking their phone or looking distracted? That could be a sign for me. I'm in conversation with this guy and he keeps looking at his watch. Maybe I need to stop talking about myself and start engaging with them and caring more about them than myself. Number 2 guardrail could be listening more and talking less. So for example, in groups like a Celebrate Recovery open share group, let's say there's 10 guys in a group. I'm one of the 10. That means I'm listening 90% of the time and only talking 10% of the time. What does this teach me? It teaches me to take the focus from myself onto others. And then finally, number 3, refocus on others. Changing my attention to the other person just from the onset, just thinking, okay, I'm going to talk to this person. I need to bless them. I need to invest them. What can I do to leave them better than they came? This helps me to connect with their needs and fosters passion. I've actually used this. I'm in a retail job right now, and I use this when I'm working and people come up to me and ask for help. My prayer is, before I get to work, and I say this in my mind, is how can I leave this person better than I? So let's look at the positive side. Analyzing can be a gift from God when used correctly. It allows me to see things deeply and think critically. In ministry and life, this gift can help me solve problems and guide others wisely. It's about finding the balance, using my analytical mind to serve others while also trusting God. So I want to close with kind of a big picture for you. This came from my sponsor as well. He said, imagine it like a car engine. If I focus only on the symptoms, overanalyzing, I miss the root issue. Being proactive allows me to fine-tune my behavior once I address the deeper problem. For example, let's say the car is, it's running really rough, so I get the OBD reader on there and it says that it's misfiring on cylinders 2 and 4. Well, I could go to the auto parts store and get some stuff and pour it in the gas and hope that that stops it from knocking. When in reality, all I needed to do was clean the spark plugs, or maybe I'm blowing a head gasket. What is the deeper problem? Once I've addressed that, I can fine tune with cleaning up the spark plugs or putting a new one. So, wrapping this up, God made me an analytical for a reason, but I need to balance it with wisdom, recognizing when to step back, and trust Him. By doing this, I can turn over analyzing from a grievance into a gift that benefits me and those around me. So, here's a question for you. What area of your life do you think that God would want you to start working on? Have you thought about this? Have you taken time to pray and, saying, hey, Lord, will you show me? Show me what area of my life. Show me what area of my life needs improvement. Show me where I realize I need growth. Show me where I'm selfish. Show me where I'm full of pride. Show me where I'm doing this and that. And in recovery circles, we talk about peeling back the onion. And the more you work on these areas, the more God is able to work in your life and reveal other things. And, really, do we want to deal with symptoms, or do we want to deal with the heart, the deeper issues, the causes of this stuff in our life? And I believe that as you do this, you'll be encouraged to begin to work in the areas of your life that God is challenging you to do. So, and as we do this, we become healthier people, and our effectiveness in ministry increases. So that's awesome. So I want to thank you for joining me today in this podcast as we kind of looked at what an inventory is and really kind of went over mine. Analyzing, I don't necessarily usually share my inventory publicly, but I thought it would be helpful here and maybe encourage you to get into a recovery group for pastors. Really, the journey to get healthy is to get in a group with others. We don't do it alone. We recognize that we're powerless. We recognize that God has the power. We recognize we can't do it without inviting God to work in our lives. We recognize that we can't do it alone. And so then we begin to work on those areas of our life. And so if you're interested again in joining a CPR group, we're working on our URL issues. As of now, please go to the website, http, all that, how that goes, but go to tinyurl.com/pastors recovery men, or if you're a lady, go to tinyurl.com/pastors recovery women. Again, I hope you enjoyed this podcast today, and I hope you were blessed. May God be with you and give you a blessed week. We'll see you next time.